All right, back on the Young Turks. So, first of all, on the short-term increase of the raising of the debt ceiling, let me explain. So, of course, Democrats and Republicans are having fights over should we raise the debt ceiling or not. I've told you all along, Republicans are bluffing. Wall Street has already told them you're going to raise the debt ceiling and you're going to shut up about it, okay? And so Republicans are pretending, oh, no, we got a massive trillions of dollars worth of cuts. Now, Democrats know they're pretending. Tim Geithner even said it to the press, hey, I talked to the bankers, then they already gave these guys their marching orders, and we know that they're going to give in on that, right? But they're all playing a game on us to screw all of us over so they can cut spending and cut taxes too to make the rich even richer, right? To give you a sense that that's absolute certainty, on Face the Nation, Senator Mitch McConnell said, if we can't do something really significant about the debt ceiling, then we'll probably end up with a very short-term proposal over a few months, and we'll be back having the same discussion in the fall. Meaning, hey, if we really push it and we get close to that debt ceiling, don't worry about it. Of course we'll raise it, and then we'll keep going on with this soap opera. That's nonsense, okay? Now, the reason Democrats play along, of course, is that they are the good cops and the good cop, bad cop that they're playing on the American middle class. So you go to Senator Graham. He's on one of these programs as well. He's on Meet the Press, and he's going to talk, finally, with the good news, they're going to talk about revenue. Okay, fantastic. Let's check it out. Clip 18.
No one on the Republican side is going to vote to raise taxes, but I think many of us would look at flattening the tax code, do away with deductions and exemptions, and take that revenue to help pay off the debt.
So you're not opposed to some moves that could actually create some new revenue?
Yeah, one way to do that is to do away with ethanol subsidy and a bunch of other subsidies that go to a few people, take that money back into the federal treasury and pay off the debt. That doesn't raise taxes. That takes special interest groups, their gravy train away and helps pay off the debt. That's one way to help pay off the debt.
Now, there you get excited. That sounds good, man. There's a Republican saying, hey, let's take away deductions and exemptions. Don't get excited. Here comes the huge caveats, okay? Let's go to the second clip where he starts talking about Social Security. Interesting.
There's no way on God's green earth you're going to balance the budget until you put entitlements on the table like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. David, what did they do? They adjusted the age slowly but surely from 65 to 67. We need to means test benefits. Everybody on this program could in the future give up some of their benefits for Social Security to keep it solvent. And you got to do the same thing on Medicare. Slowly but surely adjust the age, and upper income Americans should pay more when it comes to Medicare.
But interesting that your party is not with you on that. The party, I mean, Paul Ryan didn't even include Social Security in his budget plan, and these are still areas, you say, we have to act like grown-ups. Nobody's really willing to go in and touch these things.
Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill were grown-ups. They came up with a formula to save Social Security that slowly but surely adjusted the age. People over 55 are unaffected, but I think young Americans believe Social Security and Medicare are going to fail if we don't do something.
This is all a game they're playing on you. Now, David Gregory says, well, the Republicans didn't even propose raising the Social Security retirement age. And the Democrats didn't propose it either. President Obama backed away from it. Fantastic. Guess what happened? Well, at the end of last week, the AARP, the people who are supposed to look out for senior citizens the most, that's their whole job, right? Came out and said we should raise the retirement age. Why? Because Washington has agreed that they're going to raise the retirement age, okay? So they're going to do it by hook or by crook, and it's always by crook, by the way. And so they get the AARP to provide cover for the Republicans and the Democrats. Why do they need a political cover? Because it is horribly unpopular. 84% of the country says do not touch Social Security under any circumstances. I don't care if you want to balance the budget. I don't care about anything. Do not touch it. Don't cut my benefits. What's Lindsey Graham saying? All of a sudden, well, we got to raise the retirement age. You know, we already raised it to 67. Those geniuses, Reagan and O'Neill, did that. Tip O'Neill, now we got to raise it to 69. Now, I told you from day one how long I've been telling they're going to raise the retirement age. Why? Because it doesn't take a rocket scientist. All you got to do is read the papers. Simpson and Bowles did this commissioned by Obama that the Republicans loved, stacked with 14 conservatives out of 18 members. And Simpson and Bowles came out and said, yeah, we're going to raise the retirement age to 69. The rest of it has been a tap dance to get to that point by all these frauds, the Republicans and the Democrats. So now that's a Republican. On the Democratic side, Mark Warner on these programs, and he said, hey, look, if we're going to raise the debt ceiling, we got to do this budget deal. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to do spending cuts and tax increases. They say revenue increases, right? I say, okay, great. At least you're looking at both sides. Everybody pays their fair share, right? Well, here comes the monkey wrench, right? First of all, he says spending has to be 3 times, spending cuts has to be 3 times as much as what we'd raise revenue. First of all, how's that fair? Why is that fair? Why is a Democrat proposing that? By the way, same exact thing President Obama proposed. 75% has to come out of the middle class and the poor, and that 25% theoretically is supposed to come out of raising taxes on the rich. But here comes the second curveball, which is the most devastating. Mark Warner, so-called Democrat, supposed Democrat from Virginia, who is no such thing, certainly no progressive. Well, maybe he is a Democrat because they're not really progressives. Comes out and says, oh, by the way, yeah, we will get rid of some of those deductions and exemptions that Graham referred to. You see, because they all agree this is all nonsense, right? They all know what conclusion they want to get to. They all know how they want to trick us and how they want to rob us. So Mark Warner says, we'll get rid of some of those, but in return, we will lower taxes. So what happened to raising taxes? What happened? No. They're going to lower taxes. Now, understand how you're going to continue to get robbed by that. Remember, 75% was already coming out of your hide, right? Now, the other 25% that is in revenue increases, well, when they take away your home mortgage deduction, well, you don't have that anymore, and that hits the middle class pretty hard. And there's a lot of exemptions that apply to the middle class, some to the rich, but a lot to the middle class. They take those away. And then in return, what do? They lower the corporate tax rate. So corporations win again. And now Mark Warner is talking about lowering the rate for the top bracket. So the rich actually get richer. This is a so-called Democratic proposal. Don't believe them, man. Don't believe them. They're coming to rob you blind. So in the end, what happens? The middle class and the poor pay 100% of this so-called deficit reduction, and the rich pay almost none of it. Why? It's because the rich are the ones that write the laws. They bought Mark Warner. They bought the Democrats. They bought Lindsey Graham. They bought the Republicans. So in the end, you think that they're going to pay? No, they're going to get their money's worth from these slimy politicians in Washington that they bought off. And they're going to leave you with the belt. What did I tell you? I told you they were going to lower taxes, right? It seems impossible. Obama gave a huge speech about how he was going to raise taxes. Remember that speech? And I said, don't believe it. There's a line in there about how, you know what, in the end, we could actually lower some taxes. That's what was their plan all along. They're all in on this game. So now, you know, they had net roots, and some people were disaffected, progressives, by Obama. Not nearly enough. They should be far more disaffected by Obama. And that became a big news event, and then they wanted to, you know, hit back on that and say, no, that's not the case, et cetera, et cetera. And so what they did was they commissioned a poll there. It's a Democratic poll by Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner. They do good work. And they found out that 80% of the people there actually support Obama, okay, at this progressive convention. Now, okay, great. That looks like a big number, right? But when you dive in a little bit, look at this. 27% strongly approve of Obama. 53% somewhat approve. 13% say they somewhat disapprove. 7% they say flat out disapprove of the president. This is the biggest liberal convention in the country, okay? Only 27% strongly approve of the president. Look, you can frame it any way you like, and if the White House looks at that and looks at the 80% number and gets high five, and they think they got the liberals in their back pockets. At the biggest liberal gathering, only 27% strongly approve of a Democratic president. First of all, that's a terrible number for your in your re-election chances, okay? But you keep thinking you're smart, right? And you got this thing figured out. But as far as the people who disapprove, and as I look at that, I think, where am I in that list? No, I got to be in the 13% that somewhat disapprove, or in the 20% that overall disapprove. I don't buy it. I think they're coming to rob us. I've been telling you all along, and I've been right all along. Let's see what happens at the end. Our only chance is that we fight back, okay? So, all right, so why do I think that? Look, I want to go back to this thing, because I want people to understand where I'm coming from. So, President Obama said during the campaign that he's going to change the way Washington is, right? And in fact, he did an ad on it. Remember, it was an ad called Billy. It was about Billy Tauzin, a drug lobbyist who used to work in Congress, okay? I want you to watch the ad, and then I want to tell you what happened in the Obama administration, the reality, and then you'll see why some people might be disaffected by the president. Let's go to clip number 7.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message. The pharmaceutical industry wrote into the prescription drug plan
that Medicare could not negotiate with drug companies. And you know what? The chairman of the committee who pushed the law through went to work for the pharmaceutical industry making $2 million a year. Imagine that. That's an example of the same old game playing in Washington. You know, I don't want to learn how to play the game better. I want to put an end to the game playing.
Ha ha ha. Joke was on us. Turns out he wanted to play the game just a tiny little bit better. That's all. He put an end to the game playing. Here, I'll tell you. Billy Tauzin, the guy he did that ad about, invited to the White House 11 times in the first 6 months alone of the Obama administration. Eventually, they struck a deal with the drug companies, and the guy they struck that deal with was Billy Tauzin. And what did they get? Well, the drug company said, we will help you pass your weak law, and we'll run some ads on it. How many ads they ran? They were supposed to run $150 million ads. I didn't see any. Maybe they ran a couple. Did they really run $150 million? I'd be shocked. And then plus, now look, it's not Bush. You don't get nothing. You get a tiny little bit of change. Plus, we'll give you $80 billion. Now, $80 billion sounds like a lot, right? But they did the numbers. They crunched the numbers on it. It's a joke compared to what they're going to make off the monopolies that President Obama is going to continue for them. So what are those monopolies that they are willing to give up $80 billion and not even blink? Well, here they are. No drug reimportation from other countries. So that's it. Our borders are finally closed. Not to immigrants, but to drugs. So remember they used to say during the Bush administration, oh, those drugs from Canada, they're so unsafe, right? What a bunch of nonsense. No, they want a monopoly because they don't believe in free markets. They don't believe in capitalism. They believe in corporatism where they crush capitalism, where they crush free markets and they buy politicians and set up monopolies. So no drug reimportation. Obama agrees. Number two, they extend the patents for these original drug patents to 12 years. That's bigger than Bush. That's a bigger monopoly. What's a patent? It's a monopoly. Nobody else can compete. Number three, Medicare is not, and the entire government is not allowed to negotiate with drug companies. You've got a monopoly, and you can't even, within that monopoly, the government, which is the biggest actor that can influence prices the most, cannot even negotiate with this so-called private company. This is called corporatocracy, okay? Where the corporations buy our politicians and they rob us blind. So, gee, I wonder why I'm bothered by President Obama, who told me during the campaign that he wasn't going to play those Washington games. He wasn't going to play them a little better. He was going to change the game. What part of it got changed? And then they say, oh, no, you liberals, you're asking for too much. You know, you should just enjoy the breadcrumbs that President Obama gave you. This isn't about a single issue. It isn't about the public adoption. It isn't about the wars. It isn't about, you know, when did he act on immigration, which is, by the way, never. When did he act on gay rights, which was at the very end, et cetera? Did he give in for the Bush tax cuts? Yes, he did, et cetera. This isn't about all those issues that we are right to worry about and to concern us about it because we're worried about the middle class in this country. It is about, is Obama trying to do the right thing? Is he even trying to change the system? I don't mean he's a bad guy and he's trying to do something immoral or wrong. I mean, is he doing what he promised? Trying to change the system so that it represents us. It represents real Americans and not the lobbyists. And the answer to that is a resounding no. He works with those same exact lobbyists that he ran the ads against to try to get a deal that's a little better, to play that Washington game a little better. So now you know why I am dissatisfied with the president. And what will he do? We started this conversation with the budget negotiations. He will do everything the Republicans ask of him. He will cut spending, so that will be 75% of the cuts will be in spending. He will lower taxes, not raise them. They'll give you all sorts of malarkey about, and yes, I just used the word malarkey, about deductions and exemptions, et cetera, and most of which will come out of your pocket. And then they'll lower taxes for the richest people in the country and corporations. And I haven't even gotten to the tax holiday yet, so let's get to it. So in the midst of all of this shifting of the burden onto the middle class and the poor, this great redistribution of wealth from the middle class in this country to the guys who run the corporations, there is a clever little idea called a tax holiday. Because the corporations, boy, they pay so much taxes, except for all the corporations that pay zero taxes. Except for ExxonMobil, GE, et cetera, who get taxes back from us for subsidies for doing things that are incredibly profitable in the first place, which is nonsense. So, but they need a tax holiday because they're too taxed. So what they do is when they make money abroad, they hold it abroad and they hold it hostage. and they say, we're not going to repatriate this money into the United States, and we're not going to create jobs with it in the United States unless you agree to our demands. And our ransom note is, even though taxes are 35% for corporations, we don't want to pay that. We want to pay about 5%. 5%. 5%. That's what they want to pay. The rate's 35%. By the way, the amount of corporate taxes paid in this country over the last 30 years as a percentage of the taxes paid overall has nosedived. It's down to like 6% of taxes. It used to be in the 30s. Payroll tax, the tax that all of us pay, skyrocketing up as a percentage of taxes that the country pays. Why? The corporations are shifting all the taxes onto us and away from them. So, of course, they want 5%. Who's going to help them? Well, CNBC is going to help them because they represent the worst of the capitalists in this country. And, of course, Paul Ryan's going to help them. There's a program called Squawk Box, and Joe Kernan, or whatever his name is, and he can't get names right either, so he has no right to complain, is going to talk about this guy who's absolutely right, indisputably right in the New York Times, but he doesn't like what he's saying because he dares to challenge the might of the corporations, and Paul Ryan's going to say, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you the real facts. Let's watch.
Everybody's talking about repatriation, which would also, if you reform,
good idea.
You reform the tax code.
We're going to have it every day. We're going to have, instead of having repatriation every 7 years, let's have it every single day.
But this is the kind of, you want to talk to demo guy, and here's the New York Times. I can't pronounce this guy's last name, but he says the last time we did this, the holiday, it benefited the 60% of the benefits of bringing the money back went to just 15 of the largest United States multinational companies, many of which laid off domestic workers, closed domestic plants, and shifted even more of their profits and resources abroad in hopes of cashing in on the next repatriation holiday. So that was what the attitude of this guy, the New York Times, they let this guy write the front page, here it is, front page, and right in the body, this is not the op-ed pages, but in the body of the piece says that the reason they moved things offshore was to cash in on this next repatriation. Not that it's a 35% tax rate right here. Not that if we lowered it to 25% that there'd be no reason to do any of those things. And that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get anything till 2012. You've got we had Andy Stern saying
he's for repatriation.
Yeah,
no, I know
bring back the $1 trillion. Why would you not? But
I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce this guy's name.
No, but the New York Times immediately points out, a lot of that went to shareholders. God forbid that happens.
We are locking up so much cash overseas. Our U.S. tax system is so internationally uncompetitive.
So, there's the New York Times pointed out facts. But those facts would hurt our beloved corporations. So, the repatriation that they're considering, well, like I said, would lower to 5.25%. That would be the tax. That's what Ryan says we should do every day. We should do every day. Every day the corporation should only pay 5% tax. Of course, the American middle class should pay all the taxes. Corporations should rise scot-free. So what are the facts? Here are some of the things that are pointed out. First of all, by the way, the repatriation would cost us $80 billion over 10 years. Somebody's got to pay that money at some point, okay? And if it's not them, who is it? It's you. So they're going to cost you $80 billion because Squawk Box doesn't like it. They want to protect their buddies. Now, they say, oh no, it creates jobs. My ass, it creates jobs. Let me give you the facts. Back in 2004, when they repatriated the money, here's what they did with it. Pfizer repatriated $37 billion. In 2005, 2006, so the next 2 years, they laid off 10,000 people. What happened? I thought they were going to create jobs. That's a lot of money to repatriate, and then you lay off 10,000 people. All right, Merck repatriated $15.9 billion, laid off 7,000 people. Hewlett-Packard repatriated $14.5 billion, laid off 14,500 people. Honeywell, $2.7 billion repatriated, 2,000 laid off. Ford, $900 million repatriated, 30,000 laid off. Colgate-Palmolive repatriated $800 million, 4,000 people laid off. How about Dell? Dell said, oh, no, you don't understand. We're going to create a plant here. And they did. Hey, look, that's the one shining example that the conservatives point to. In Winston-Salem, North Carolina, they created a plant. How much? They repatriated $4 billion. How much did they spend on the plant? $100 million. $100 million of $4 billion. Okay, fine, great. At least they did something, created jobs, right? When they asked Dell representatives, hey, would you have spent that money anyway if that money didn't come from the repatriation? They're like, yeah, of course we would have. Those plants were already in place. We're going to build that plant no matter what. You just gave us free money to do it with. Well, at least they were honest about it, right? Unlike Paul Ryan and Squawk Box. They want to shift all of the burden onto you and away from corporations. Corporations are robbing us blind in this country, and they're doing it by buying slimy politicians like Paul Ryan, and by the way, a lot of Democrats. And I talk to Democrats all the time, and when I ask them about this thing, they say, "Oh yeah, well you got to repatriate." The only guy today, Howard Dean, said, "Hey, you know what? How about we let them repatriate?" Which I don't believe. Okay, but so I'm to the left of Howard Dean, but Howard Dean says, "All right, let's repatriate under one condition, that they must spend it on creating jobs in America." Now, how can you argue with that, right? Now, I think the only way you can argue is say, no, they should pay their fair taxes, then create jobs in America, right? But you can't say, no, they shouldn't pay their fair taxes. They should pay almost nothing. They should make us pay the taxes, and they shouldn't create any jobs with it. Well, that's what 99% of Washington says anyway. You think Howard Dean's idea is going to get implemented? What? By who? By who? The White House? Who's now having dinner with Wall Street as we speak, going, "Oh, please, 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 what can I do for you? What can I do for you? How much of your money can I repatriate?" Here's the Cenk rule. From now on, when you make money abroad, you pay your taxes. That's it. How easy was that? No, I don't let you keep it offshore and then have $1 trillion there and then hold it hostage and say, "I'm not going to create jobs," and yada, 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 and give me all this bullshit. No, you make the money and you pay your taxes, whether you make it here or whether you make it in a foreign country. You pay that same year. How you like me now? Problem solved. You keep the rate at 35%. But I made it abroad. I don't give a damn. Okay? Why don't you pay your taxes like the rest of us? You tax cheats, you tax frauds. If we don't pay our taxes, we go to jail. When they don't go pay their taxes, our politicians kiss their ass. Tax holiday. Yeah, I'd like a tax holiday. I gotta call it, man. I got more, but we got a whole second hour to go. Come back. All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk Grant, Kasparian. We move forward to another serious and very important story that I'm glad we're doing in this hour.
All right. The Supreme Court has ruled against a class action lawsuit that was filed by women who worked at Walmart. The women claim that because of discrimination within the company, they were unable to get promoted to manager positions and they were underpaid. You get the picture. Well, of course, unsurprisingly, the Supreme Court said, no, we're going to strike this down. We don't believe that this is a class action lawsuit. In fact, according to the Associated Press, by a 5-4 vote along ideological lines, the court said there were too many women in too many jobs at Walmart to wrap into one lawsuit. However, here's another claim that they made. The lawsuit failed to show a company-wide discriminatory pay and promotion policy. In other words, there are so many women, countless women claiming that there's discrimination within this company. However, they have failed to prove that this is actually happening, that it is an actual policy.
Right.
Like, in other words, it needs to be in the fine print in order for a class action policy to be filed.
Right. They need to come out and say, we hate women, and that's why we discriminate against them. Okay, do we wait? Come on, who's going to say that, right? Let's look at the numbers just real quick. Dating from back in 2001, women are grossly underrepresented among the manager level, 14% of store manager positions, compared with 80% of lower-ranking supervisory jobs that are paid by the hour, right? So that's a big, big discrepancy. Walmart said that, well, look, in its retail stores, 2/3 of all of its employees and 2/3 of the managers were women, right? So they're saying at the lower levels, it's all women working for us, so that's why there's a lot of managers down there. At the higher levels, come on, they're women. Now, wait a minute. How does it explain that you're not hiring women at the higher levels, that all your lower level workers are women? There's a disconnect. It's not like, oh, well, they're lower level. Obviously, they can't be higher level. No. If you have all those managers who are women, why aren't they getting promoted up? But for me, it's not about whether Walmart was discriminating or not. That you'd have to be involved in the jury and hear a lot of evidence, and I'd be very open-minded about that, and I'd want to see, what can you show, et cetera, and I don't have all the facts enough to make a decision on that, okay? For me, this is an absolutely outrageous decision because it is the Supreme Court protecting all of corporate America and crushing the average worker. Why? If you cannot file a class action lawsuit, no one is going to have enough money to get representation. See, the class action lawsuits work brings all the workers together so that if they win a big amount, so it makes sense for a lawyer to represent them. If it's just Joe Johnson and he's in a store in Arkansas, or in this case, Mary Johnson, and she's being discriminated against, how the hell, she's making, what is she making, $9 an hour? How the hell is she going to offer an attorney any money? If she wins, what's she going to win? What's she going to win? A couple of $1,000s? No attorney's going to take that case. You think the Supreme Court doesn't know that? You think
They do know that.
You think the 5 justices on the Supreme Court who voted this way, and it was, of course, 5-4, all the conservatives voted this way, all the others voted the other way. You think those, of course they know that. And they think, excellent, we crushed the workers, and they'll never be able to file any lawsuit, right or wrong, ever again, because nobody will take their case. An enormous win for multinational corporations, an enormous loss for American workers, and business as usual in America.
Right. Justice Ginsburg made the exact same point that you made. And, you know, she's saying, well, look, what are we going to do now? Basically, we're not representing the workers, the average workers. And the 2 women who are really pushing for this class action lawsuit say that they're not going to allow this decision to stop them. They're going to continue on with lawsuits and do whatever they can to create equality within Walmart, but it's going to be even more difficult than ever. And
look, this case, since it's already gone so far, might continue because the lawyers on it might continue to work even if they're not going to get a big payout, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. But how about the next case, right? How about the next case that isn't about Walmart, that isn't about anything else? So what's going to happen then, okay? Mm-hmm. So you'll never hear about it. You'll never hear about it. Because somebody will go to a lawyer and a lawyer will laugh at them. Hundreds of people, thousands of people all across the country will go to a lawyer and say, hey, you know what, they're discriminating against me and everybody else here. They says, oh, I'm going to take up your case and win $10,000 after I spend years and years and years. We're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. It's going to cost me $100,000, maybe millions of dollars, and I'm going to win, what, $5,000, $10,000? And they're going to tell all those people to get out of their office. And they can't take those cases. And that's it. Another huge win for corporations. Look, you got to understand something about the Supreme Court. Yeah, you know, they're wildly partisan, you know, so much garbage, all that wasted time and effort where they try to pretend it's about their principles, right? And, you know, conservatives do this all the time. You know, progressives, sometimes they switch positions too, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Bush case, everybody flopped, okay, flip-flopped. The conservatives who said they were for states' rights all said, screw the state of Florida. We don't give a damn about their rights. We're ending the voting right now. The progressives who said, nah, states' rights aren't that important, national issues, flip to the other side. Now, people will really disagree with me on the interpretation. They'll say progressives are right, the conservatives are wrong. Okay, I hear you. Okay, fine. And I don't want to get into that now, okay? But on the conservatives, there's no question. They don't care about any of their principles, okay? And I don't even care about the partisan stuff. That's what I was getting to. There's only one issue that matters the most. And that is the strength of corporations. This Supreme Court is lockstep in favor of multinational corporations. That is their whole point. I go back to this because people don't know it. 1971, Lewis Powell, working for the Chamber of Commerce, writes a memo, says, hey, you know what? We're trying to influence politics to go in our direction so we can get more favors from the government. But we're going about this the wrong way. We got to first go conquer the Supreme Court, and then they will open up the laws that allow us to buy the politicians. Okay?
And they've done that. That's exactly how it worked out.
Well, here's how it worked out. Richard Nixon thought, brilliant memo, welcome to the Supreme Court. And he became Justice Lewis Powell. And Justice Lewis Powell was a deciding vote in 2 decisions, that were absolutely critical. In 1976, Buckley v. Vallejo, where they say, it is free speech to spend money on politics, okay? Money equals speech. In 1978, in First Bank of Boston versus Berlotti, they say corporations have the same First Amendment rights as people, hence they can spend money on politics, and the rest has been a downward slide into oblivion, okay? And so right now, this is, for the Supreme Court, they did Citizens United, they did this, they are helping to crush the American people, okay? Now, to give you a sense of how much that 1976 to 78 makes a difference, look, most people, I've said this a couple times on the show, but they don't get it, man. Nobody else in the country understands what's going on. They don't understand the corporate takeover. I mean, some of you do. Obviously, that's part of the reason you watch this show, right? But they don't get it that that's exactly when everything changed. We've talked about this before. Al Franken talked about it at Netroots over the weekend, bless his heart. 1947 to 1977. The top fifth, their incomes rise over that 30-year period, 99%. Great. Okay, no problem. The bottom fifth rise 116%, their average income, salaries. Okay? The bottom fifth rose more than the top fifth. In this day and age, that seems impossible. Okay, so you know that. Now, I've told you that before in a post game. We had a long discussion about it. Now, one other thing. What's happened since 1977 to the bottom fifth? The bottom fifth that had gained that 116%, by the way, the top 1% has gone up over 100% in their money, of course, right? The bottom fifth, they have lost 30% of their income since 1977. They've lost 30% of their income. What happened to rising tide lifts all boats? What happened to trickle-down economics? Bullshit. Unmitigated bullshit. It trickles down on us, okay? And so, and this is another, part of that puzzle. Now, we're screwed. And nobody's going to be able to sue any company for anything. And those people, and I was going to use a much more colorful adjectives on the Supreme Court, they're going to have nice steak dinners, and they're going to celebrate, and they're going to have their wine, and they're going to laugh and snicker at the average American worker as they say, job well done, way to hand the country over to soulless machines that are multinational corporations.
All right. In other good news today, we have...
And in other good news, okay, yes.
We have created a new system of debtor's prison.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay. This was a story that was reported by the Huffington Post, and I had to mention it during the show today because I think it's extremely important. There was a woman from Colorado by the name of Kelly Whittemer, and she had gotten into a car accident where she caused $500 worth of damage to the other car. It was her fault, okay? She was turning when she should have allowed another car to turn. It had the right of way. So after causing that damage, the other party went to court, and a judge also tacked on a $1,950 restitution fee. Okay, so she would have to pay restitution plus $500. The only problem was Kelly was unemployed, and she had a very difficult time paying the payments every month. And of course, if you make a late payment, if you miss a payment, you have additional fees. So she was, drowning in this debt. So what happened? What did they do? They decided to throw her in jail for 4 nights. Because throwing her in jail is going to help with the money situation, right? We're going to spend more resources, more local resources, on putting her in jail rather than finding a way to help this woman out.
Look, you got to understand something. We got rid of debtors' prisons in this country because it's grotesque, right? So if you've got loans you can't pay, that's a bad situation, and you're going to suffer from it because your credit rating is going to be disastrous. You're not going to be able to get a loan on a car. You're not going to be able to get a loan on a house. So without a loan, how in the world can you afford a car? It's already a disaster situation. It's already incredible pain, right? But to put you in prison, to take away your liberty because you owe somebody money, we decided in this country that's not how we do things. But that was the old America. The new America is where corporations crush everything in their path, and they don't give a damn about you. Now, what did I tell you? How many months ago did we? About a year ago or so, we did a story about how one of the Las Vegas casinos to try to get one of their biggest whales. Whales are the guys who spend the most amount of money, okay? Gamblers. After he lost tens of millions of dollars and ran out of money, he still owed them a little bit, right? And they tried to get him thrown in prison. And I said, look, yeah, they're going after a rich guy, whatever, and he was irresponsible, yada, yada, yada. Who cares? You don't throw people in jail for prison. That's crazy. If you start that precedent, we're going to go back to debtors' prisons. And here we go.
Right. And the way that I guess the legal system is trying to term it, of course they're not calling it debtor's prison. They're saying that people have legal financial obligations, and if they default on those obligations, well, then they have to go to jail.
Okay, you know what? I agree. I changed my mind. Fantastic. Agree. I'm looking forward to Lloyd Blankfein, Jamie Dimon, and all the CEOs of the companies that defaulted in 2008. Hey, fold, Lehman Brothers collapsed, bankrupt. They owed billions upon billions of dollars, okay? The others got rescued. Fold can't even make the argument. I want to see him in handcuffs. I want to see him in prison. No, I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand? When bankers owe us billions and trillions of dollars, they don't get arrested. No. This isn't for bankers. This is for the little people. So if you can't pay back $4,000, we're going to add $10,000 on top, and we're going to throw your ass in jail. But the bankers can steal every last dime in the country. You think they're going to jail? Hell no. Goldman Sachs, all that money that they ripped off the American people, $13 billion through AIG alone, right? The one guy that is now under investigation, being indicted, et cetera, is a 28-year-old guy who worked at Goldman Sachs.
He was the janitor.
He wasn't, but this fabulous Fab Therese or whatever. You remember that guy? So he was a character, and he was in the congressional hearings, et cetera, right? And they're like, oh, we got him. It turns out the guy who was the genius behind this whole mastermind and this whole plot for Goldman Sachs to rip off the American people was a 28-year-old that just started working there. And he's like, what the hell happened to me?
I love how quickly they threw him under the bus. The big wheels keep on turning.
Right. By the way, Goldman Sachs, they're like, okay, you want us to pay for your lawyer? Well, it's got to be our lawyer. Okay, so it's Goldman Sachs' lawyer saying, Fabulous Fab, don't worry about it, man. We got you covered.
Oh, my
You
God.
just get our lawyer. You're going to be all right. Oh, look at that. You were the only guy prosecuted. Funny coinky-dink.
His nickname is Fabulous Fab?
Yeah.
It's kind of badass.
It's so not badass. Part of the reason he's in trouble because he's an idiot and wrote all these emails to his friends saying, ha, we're robbing everybody blind.
What an idiot.
Okay, so that's how he was Fabulous Fab. So, look, man, there's a revolution coming. Okay? People can only take so much. And wait till Greece explodes. And wait till all these things start unraveling. And, I mean, what are you going to do? Throw the whole country in jail? What are you going to do?
It's heading in that direction. Think about the number of people who have those legal financial obligations who can't pay for it because of unemployment. What are you going to do if it's a bad economy, if you do not have the ability to find a job? By the way, this woman isn't some bum. You know, she went to school, she got her BA in finance, she was working as a financial analyst, she had a great job, and now she's looking for work and she can't find it because she's overqualified. No one's going to give her a job. So what do they want her to do? I mean, there was one despicable woman quoted in this AP article who basically said, oh, well, you know, who cares if she's overqualified? She can find work. There's work out there.
Not if she's in prison. Okay. And by the way, you know, Tina Dupuis, the host of TYT Now, that we show on TYT shows on YouTube. I know it's a lot of names, right? Just go to youtube.com/TYT shows to check her out. She was telling me a story of a story she covered. Fascinating. One of those Walmart managers, we were just doing the Walmart story, right? After being a manager for a long time, you know, succeeding, getting promoted, etc., she was all the way up to $9 an hour.
Wow.
Okay. Then she gets hurt on the job, and they're like, sad day for you, you're gone. Okay? Then she doesn't have health insurance. Now what's she going to do? You know what she's going to do? She's going to wind up in debtor's prison. Okay? I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know her story well enough, and Tina can tell you more about it, etc., right? And she's not going to debtor's prison for now. But she's asking people, she's like, what am I supposed to do? I did everything they told me to do. I was a good employee. I worked my way up. I got the $9 an hour. And now I'm screwed. And when they, you know, and Walmart says that you can't unionize, et cetera, because, you know, you guys would make too much money. Too much money. Do you know that almost all those Walmart employees get food stamps? Okay? Because they can't afford to live on $9 an hour, so they got to get food stamps. And then what do the Republicans call? Bums.
Well, yeah, they're bums. They should have found better jobs.
But they work all day long. Some of them have 2 jobs, but they're bums, right? This country is in a lot of trouble, man. And it seems that the people in Washington have no clue. Okay, look, you know how I feel about the Republicans, but look at the Democrats. How many of the Democrats understand this? What, 2, 3? Bernie Sanders is ripping his hair out, right? How many? Mark Warner, senator from Virginia, who's now talking about cutting tax on the rich again? That guy knows about these people's troubles? Look, that's why I say there's a revolution coming, because we can't have it. We can't have these Republicans, and we can't have these Democrats, and we're tired of it, man. I mean, I'm not talking. Of course, I'm not a right winger. Of course, I'm not talking about violent revolution. I don't want anybody to get any crazy ideas. We're talking about we need an absolute political revolution in this country. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back.